Good evening and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
I'm your host, David. Tonight we're returning back to our seasonal recap of multiple seasons, starting tonight back in halfway through season 4, probably going through season 5. But before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Podcast.
That's correct. And as I say every single week, you should find us and follow us because we are great. We're awesome. We're a good time. And as David said, we are just kind of doing a recap of the highs and lows of the seasons of Deep Space Nine, things that we enjoyed. We initially started this with being like, we're just going to talk about like a couple of things in the season, but true to form with Deep Space Nine, there's just so many good things we couldn't not mention all of them. So it's quick, it's a rapid whatever, but we are trying to get through to everything. So as David said, we are starting with season 4 tonight, but we did already discuss several episodes already of season 4. So
Mhm,
tonight we're going to start with episode. I believe it was the 11th episode of the 4th season, which is called Homefront.
mhm,
So this is the episode that was, the beginning of a two-parter they didn't want to call a two-parter. So you had Homefront and Paradise Lost, and this is the
mhm,
one where Cisco and crew go back to Earth because there was a summit meeting that was bombed. And so now they've gone back to Earth to talk about the changeling problem. Odo is brought back. We meet Admiral Layton for the first time. We find out was a person that Cisco had worked under years ago. And we also get the first mention of Red Squad in this episode.
mhm.
So Red Squad, the elite cadets who get to go off and do secret missions and stuff under supposedly strict supervision of an actual ranked officer. But as we find out later on, not always the case.
Yeah.
So, what were your first impressions of? We're talking about, and we're going to go ahead and talk about both episodes, both Homefront and Paradise Lost, just to kind of save us some time there on referencing. What were
Yeah.
your thoughts when we got to this one in season 4?
Yeah, this one's interesting. As we mentioned last week, I think it was at the end of season 3 where we got the blood test, uh, test for changelings. You that's how you can know if someone's a changeling or not is by performing a certain type of blood test. So they go to Earth, so they can basically how to perform um, that particular technique. Um, the idea that changelings would infiltrate society, impersonating certain people in order to manipulate events, definitely makes a lot of sense. And as we'll get to probably later tonight, season 5 with that plot.
Well, while we wait for David to rejoin, I seem to be having some technical difficulties there. I believe that what he was saying is it's going to make a lot of sense because, as we'll find out later on, this is something that the founders did to other races and were quite successful at. It's something that actually comes up a lot in like the extended lore about how the Dominion, kind of the way they like to take over and be a powerful influence in societies, was to start by infiltration, learn what they could, and then start to influence the people to, be amenable to their leadership, basically. Welcome back, David.
Yep.
We'll be dealing with the technical difficulty issue as much as we can here.
I don't know why it's so bad tonight. Gee whiz. Huh. Anyway, you were
Well, apparently
saying,
we have a huge storm system that's coming through.
oh, is that
It's
it?
supposed to be these next few days in particular very cold across the entire nation. So
Well, I mean, they restream where we use our broadcasting tech to start. They did something to change up how they do stuff on their website. So I don't know if that's a fair thing to blame them for, or if it's my old computer here. This thing is at least 15 years old. So not
okay,
quite
then
that
we're
old.
def-
Not
but we're
quite
gonna
that old, but close enough.
we're gonna say more column B than column A in this
Yeah.
case. you
Certainly
know.
that's been more the case, I'd say. Anyway, getting back to the story. you're asking, what did I think about this episode? Well, it's this one and the next one where the idea that Admiral Layton is the guy who's actually more the antagonist than we would expect, because we started off thinking it would be a changeling that's impersonating someone and causing problems. In fact, I think it's the end of the next episode, right, where O'Brien, a changeling impersonating O'Brien, comes up to Cisco and basically tells him, we know what we're doing, we're messing with stuff, and you can't stop us.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's actually the end of this episode, Homefront. He meets with Cisco and says, "There's only one changeling on Earth, and look at how much trouble we have wrought just by there
we've
only
already
being one."
accomplished.
You know, like he basically is admitting that, yeah, we did sabotage Earth systems. That's the only thing that we've did that we've done. The rest of this is just you guys. You guys are
Yeah,
spinning out, and you're proving our point basically, and then he
right.
disappears. You know,
Yeah,
um, so yeah, great little side scene. Get to see Chief O'Brien in a different light. I mean, obviously it's not really him, but still kind of fun.
right,
And yeah, we see Leighton really lean into this very xenophobic mindset, which is not something that we've seen a whole lot of in Star Trek. Now, it's not to say that it's not there. It's actually been present in quite a few shows. This kind of xenophobia, this paranoia about outsiders, rearing its ugly head here. And it's something that we've, again, seen our various captains warn us about from time to time, but it's not an ever-present theme. It's not one that they draw on a whole lot, because the whole
right,
point is to be open and adventuresome and reach out.
right.
So
Yeah. Well, remind me. In my mind, I don't remember so much the xenophobic element as much as the idea is like he believes that he is the best person to lead the Federation. So he kind of has like a god complex in the sense that like he already has the the Red Guard. I'm sorry, is that what they're called? The
Red Squad.
cadets, Red Squad. He already has them under his control to basically enact his will. They're a bunch of cadets, a bunch of bright-eyed
So
cadets that would obey his word up and not
mhm.
ask any questions, but they're also talented, so they can get things done. Um,
Well,
but
so
yeah,
the xenophobia comes in, in the few scenes where, we go to when we have the first scene where they meet with the president of the Federation. The
hmm
office is on Earth, and
yep,
that's the president's name is Jarish Enyo. And
yep,
they go to meet with him, and he's like, we need to implement these security features. And Enyo's like, look, I'll agree to some things, but not everything,
true.
because I don't want to turn Earth into this kind of closed off, you know,
Xenophobic
place.
place
Yeah.
where everyone's questioning each other. Right, right,
And so then Leighton later on he counters, and this is privately, not in front of the president or anything like that. But later on he counters and he says that well, Joris Enya will be a great president in peacetime, but we're not in peacetime anymore. We are at war. There are enemies out there who are coming
yeah,
for us, and
right,
we need to sew this place up. And he's like, Enyo isn't the person for us because he's not from Earth. That's what he says.
mm,
Not from Earth. He doesn't understand why we need to protect this place. We're from here. We were born and bred here. This is our home.
right,
And this foreigner, despite his office, is not going to get it, is
right,
basically his point. Now, Cisco starts to, this is where we start to see Cisco waffle a little bit, because at first he was very much on board with what Leighton is saying. But once he hears all this from Leighton, that's when Cisco starts to draw back a bit. Because as we know, Cisco is very much he's for the uniform, man. You're not going to get him to betray the
yeah,
Federation uniform. And what Leighton is saying is antithetical to what Starfleet believes in, and
right,
Cisco knows it, and that's kind of causing him to pull back.
right. Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is I liked it was I was confused in the moment because Admiral Layton does not turn out, as far as we ever discovered, to be a changeling. I mean, yeah, he's not. He's the guy
No,
who, as you pointed out, the changeling says like you guys are spiraling out on your own. You've lost me again. Um,
we've
so
got you.
you can hear me. Okay, great. Well, anyway, if he is not actually a changeling, then that would have been an easy plot. He's a changeling. We've discovered him and we throw him out. No, he's a real guy. He's making bad decisions. I like that they did that, but it was also interesting to me throughout the entire show that they didn't actually lean more into the idea that the changelings were everywhere or they could easily seem to be everywhere. In fact, in the later seasons, they don't do that. Now, the explanation that's given, which makes a lot of sense, was the idea that they're all eased. They have this problem where they can't change anymore. And that actually solves that problem of, okay, why aren't they everywhere and anywhere? Well, they have a disease that keeps them from being able to transform anymore. But earlier on, I was surprised that it seemed like they didn't do that plot line as often. It turns out that we have General Martok later on and then Dr. Bashir at some point. But honestly, other than the ambassador from the end of season 3, there aren't really any other characters that ever get exposed as a changeling, right? Am I
So
remembering correctly?
that's correct, and I get what you're saying about the disease thing, but that's something that doesn't really get, we don't really find out about later, and the reason we don't is because Homefront is where Odo is supposed to have been
Infected.
infected. So
Right.
this episode is where technically all of that, everything after that we would start to see. So,
Which, can we just say how crazy quick they figured that disease out? That this is how soon they were able to infect him with it?
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah,
And question is,
um,
I really wonder if the changeling that impersonated O'Brien is the one that they captured and basically tested the stuff on, like they figured it out, and then they gave it to Odo before he left. Like that's the behind the scenes kind of storyline of how that was discovered. That's my personal theory of how that happened.
you know what? That could work. I mean, we
Yeah,
never hear about that changeling ever again, so we don't
yeah,
really know what happened to him. Um, I liked that. I always felt like for me, the explanation that worked the best for why we didn't see more about changeling infiltrators is because the few times that we did see it, it was successful in keeping the factions. Because what the Dominion feared the most was the entire Alpha Quadrant uniting against them.
right.
So they had Martok replaced, which was just enough to keep the Federation and the Klingons
From
from
allying.
re-upping their allyship. Right. The Romulans, who at first we thought there was kind of a promising notion of there being some kind of truce between the Federation and the Romulans, but they had operatives there messing that up. And then of course the Cardassians were their obvious, foothold into the Alpha Quadrant. So they were always keeping things off balance because they kept antagonizing the Bajorans who, were under the protection of the Federation. So they didn't really need to do a mass infiltration, multiple operatives everywhere. They had just enough to sow enough seeds of discord to keep people from truly coming together.
Right.
And it wasn't until really way towards the end and Cisco fabricating evidence
Yeah.
that things
Can't wait to get to
finally,
that one. Yeah.
yeah, finally got together. So, with that being said, let's continue to move on because we've now spent a good bit of time on
Yeah. On just
just this one
one,
episode.
two episodes.
So now, of course, we have, like we were going to say earlier, the Crossfire episode. This is the one where there's a plot potentially to kill Shakar, and so he comes onto the station and he's under the protection of Odo, and um, Worf is here for the first time in a more official capacity, and he is helping out to shore up some security features. And this is also where we see just how much Odo's infatuation with Kira kind of takes him out of his element here.
Right.
And oddly enough, this is also where we see the complexities of the relationship between Quark and Odo and how they actually end up, working together to, you know, bolster Odo's spirits a little bit and get him uh, back on track. So really, it's a
Yeah.
surprising episode. You know, very much about
Mhm.
Odo and his development and his kind
Yeah.
of coming to term with the true nature of his relationship with Kira
Mhm.
than anything else.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't really feel like we need to spend a whole lot of time on so other than just to say that it's a necessary step in the development of the character Odo.
Right.
So
Yep. Return to Grace is not the episode where Ducat and Kira go find.
no, it is not the episode where they go and find Zial. That episode happens earlier. Return to Grace is the one where this is dealing with the fallout Ducat faced having found Zial and brought her home. He's now been disgraced. He's
Right.
lost his position in the Cardassian military and government, and now he's hauling, or he's the captain of a Cardassian freighter, and
That
then
goes
he
and attacks
decides to
Klingon
go on
ships.
kind of this. Right, he goes and attacks the Klingons, ends up they take over a Klingon bird of prey, and now
Right.
he's decided to use the bird of prey as his ability to come back into the fold of everything.
And this is where Damar was introduced, though.
This is where we first meet Damar as well. He is the devotee of Ducat,
Right.
and he doesn't like that Kira is there to do anything. He's
Right.
really resentful of Kira, but he puts up with her because Ducat wants her there. And
Of
this is
course
also
he does.
where yeah, and this is also another time where we see Ducat creeping on Kira, and she's there to help out, but she's like, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
And
What's up?
even Zial gets in on it a little bit. She's like, my father's not who you think he is. She's like, yes, he is.
I've known him longer than you have, unfortunately.
Yeah, known him way longer. Yes, he is. And she even tells her what your father wants is not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, but this is also where we kind of see that return of, yeah, like this is where we see Ducat almost as a good guy. You know,
Yes. I was
he's
gonna say, yeah.
yeah, you
This is the
almost are
peak
like,
of
yeah,
his good arc, and then he
right,
crashes hard after this. But yeah.
hardcore. Yes, he took an abrupt right and then took a hardcore left later on.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Um, Next episode is Sons of Moog. This is
Yeah. We
where
have to
Worf's
talk about
brother,
that.
yeah, Worf's brother Kern comes. He is completely disgraced now that Worf has once again turned his back on Gowron and the Klingon Empire. The family Moog has lost all status and standing. He's lost all of his ships. He's lost everything because of Worf's decision. And
Right.
so now he's shown up to ask his brother to give him the one thing that will restore his honor in Klingon eyes, and that is to murder him.
Right.
Um,
Honorable death.
Honorable death at the hand of a loved one.
Yeah.
Worf goes. It's important to note Worf goes through with it, but Jadzia, meddlesome Jadzia, ruins it. And yeah, we get a nice. They have a nice scene where Cisco really lays into them about cultural uh, significance while you're a Starfleet officer. It's a great
Yeah.
conversational moment because it's not something that's really talked about a lot, but we have seen it a couple of times. I know in Next Gen they get into it a little bit. Picard talks about Starfleet has an appreciation of everyone's culture, heritage, background,
Right.
but when you sign up to be a member of Starfleet, all of that goes away. You have agreed that your identity is now the Starfleet identity, whatever that is, whatever
Mhm.
Starfleet has decided to be their thing. That's what you are saying that you're going to be in. Now, it's important to note this is for Starfleet officers, not members of the Federation. That gets confused a lot for people because everybody thinks that if you join the Federation, all of a sudden your home is basically Earth number 9,000 or whatever. That's not it. As a Federation member, your world is protected, but you maintain your sovereignty. You still get to make basic rules and code of law and everything else. So there are certain things that, as a Federation member, yes, you have to agree to be a Federation member.
Right.
but that does not strip away your ability to practice your cultural rights, your ancestral whatevers.
Right. You get
Um,
protection and you get membership in the overall body, and you can send people to join Starfleet, etc. But
right.
yeah,
But
your
Starfleet
autonomy is
has a
still limited.
harder, yes, Starfleet has a harder set of rules for you to wear that uniform.
Right.
And that's what Picard has talked about, and that's what we see Cisco talk about in this episode as well.
So, quick question: does that mean that planets, even Earth, have their own sort of fleets of sorts, like just for own
Yes,
home protection?
yes, they do. And probably the most famous fleet um, would be the Vulcan fleet. We see a lot of Vulcan ships still in active duty doing things all the time. But a lot of the larger scientific and exploration things, they leave to Starfleet. Same is true of Earth. Earth still has a lot of ships that run all through the solar system, take people to various other planets and stuff. Non non-Starfleet citizens often do conduct business on other planets, stuff like that. They don't have to be in Starfleet to do so.
Right.
It's just that if you, it's basically it's a lot faster if you're in Starfleet because you get priority with like ships and whatever else. But again, there's a trade-off. You are taking orders from somebody.
Right.
But regular citizens, yeah, regular citizens can go and they've got transit to and from various systems all the time, and that's just
Right.
kind of handling that civilian aspect of it. Um, but yeah, um, what again? It is important to note there the very distinct difference there. Like, and this is why another episode in season 4 comes up and is incredibly important because one of those cultural norms kind of rears its ugly head here for us, and that's in the episode Ascension. And this is where other that poet comes back from living in the uh, celestial temple basically for 300 years,
Hmm.
and he comes back to Bajor, and he's very upset that people don't follow their Tajaras anymore.
Yeah.
And this
Their
is,
caste system. Yep.
right, it's a caste system, and so that goes against the Federation Charter. You can't have a caste system and be a member of the Federation. Now, in this episode, the argument's made that was a part of their heritage. But as Cisco points out in that episode, it was a part of your heritage. It was something that you did 300 years ago. You don't do it anymore. You naturally, over the course of 300 years, decided on your own that you were no longer going to have a caste system. So it went away.
Right.
Now you're trying to revert back to that. We can't have that.
Right.
That was the point that was made there.
Right. Yeah, and this is the episode where Cisco briefly is like, "I don't have to be the emissary anymore."
Yay! No more emissary nonsense. I'm so glad to be done with this.
And then
You know,
they decide, actually, no, you still are the emissary, and they send the guy back in time, which affects the timeline because now there is poetry that
affects
Kira.
it but doesn't affect it. Yeah, because
Yeah,
he had written this poem that he never finished because he disappeared. Now they've sent it back in time and he finishes it. But Kira's like, um,
I remember
I
both.
remember
Remember,
both versions. I remember the unfinished, and now we have a finished version.
yeah.
So
I that's a perfect example for me of like timey wimey nonsense. And just come
mhm,
on. I want someone to like knock some rules into place and like say this is how it works, but
nah, nah.
whatever.
After this episode, Ascension, there is Rules of Engagement, which is one of my favorite season 4 episodes. This is the one where Worf is put on trial for killing all those Klingon civilians, and we get to see Cisco be his lawyer, basically. And great scenes. We get a lot of Worf development here, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like it's this episode that kind of put that spark out there of a Worf standalone show of Captain Worf. I feel like this is the episode
Yeah.
that did it. Seriously, I think this is it because we get to see Worf get taken to task. You know, he
Mhm.
gets broken down a little bit. He's called out for his command decisions. He's ultimately proven to be, innocent. But then also we kind of get a gleaning from Cisco of what it means to be a Starfleet captain, which is the first time, as far as I know, that we ever hear a captain really put that into words.
Right.
There's all this talk about duty and honor and so forth, but Cisco's the first one to kind of nail it with an example. He tells Worf at the end, you should have double checked. Basically, you should have double checked your scope before you fired. And even though there was a great risk of in the process of you double checking, you would have died and everybody else would have died. As a Starfleet officer, you are not to run that risk of killing civilians. You have to be willing to put your life on the line for the sake of innocence.
Right.
And if you can't, and he tells them, if you can't make that decision, you can't sit in that chair.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
a great moment.
Yeah. It's definitely well, I guess a lot of the episodes were a lot of the great ones. So this qualifies.
Mhm.
I remember feeling like, again, Worf is being put upon by, like, let me put it this way: there's such a thing as the fog of war, and I feel like that was a perfect example of Worf made a tactically correct decision that might have been a strategically wrong decision, or vice versa, however you want to think of it. Like,
No,
yeah,
you were right. It was a tactically correct decision, but for the humanitarian aspect of it, it was incorrect.
sure,
And
yeah,
Starfleet is a paramilitary humanitarian first organization.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember how the episode goes because under attack, a vessel decloaks in front of the Defiant, expecting the vessel to be a Klingon warship. Worf orders it fired upon immediately without visual confirmation. So yeah,
Yes.
Worf is wrong in that he shoots before visual confirmation. However, let me just put it this way: I would, if the idea that, well, so first off, the whole idea of the plot is that the Klingon Empire basically set Worf up so they could smear the
Yes.
Federation. And Worf admits, because I just read the synopsis, Worf admits that he kind of had a desire. He took the mission in the first place because he wanted to fight the Klingons directly
Yes.
because he had been he's
He
outcast at this time and
Yes, he'd been
etc.
outcast, he'd lost his brother, he'd lost everything. He had a big chip on his shoulder and he had something to prove. And so he took the mission. And that's also what Cisco calls him out on. He's like, you never should have taken this
Yeah.
mission. Cisco's like, you got that right. I was like, woo, get him. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great episode.
go ahead.
I can see Worf's side of things. See Worf's side of
Yeah,
things. This
absolutely.
other episode where Worf it's dumped.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Worf absolutely does get dumped on here, as David was trying to say. But I think that's kind of the point because Worf is a character who we always think of as someone who can take it. Worf is somebody who, because he's the alien buying into what we're supposed to think of as our culture,
Right.
it kind of makes sense that he is the focal point of these things here.
Right.
And so, I mean, I like that you said that you can agree with Worf's side, you can see Worf's side of things, but that's kind of the whole point. They want you to, so
Yeah.
that at the end, the point that Cisco makes about you kind of got to be next level to sit in that chair. You can't
Yeah.
make always the tactical decision. You've got to be willing to sacrifice a little bit more
Yeah. Your
to be that
Kobayashi
leader.
Maru moment. That was Worf's Kobayashi Maru moment, and he failed it. Now, of course,
Yes.
again, the Kobayashi Maru is intended to cause you to fail.
Yes.
So the fact that this was not a real civilian ship was good. Um, and I feel like that's a perfect example too of like Worf was right to fire on it because he knew there was something wrong almost, but whatever. Point is that it's a great, interesting episode, and it's another example of something where I as you pointed out, Captain Worf, a show that would focus on him, where he's the guy he's been through the trenches, he's been chewed out by every boss he's ever had, but the man now is the guy. He is the guru of Klingon and Human Federation, like just
Absolutely.
like you
That
just
would be a fantastic show.
uh he would be he would
Worf in this.
He would be a great central character. Make them the
Right.
Picard of a show. You know,
Thank
get
you.
the
That's it.
yeah.
Make Worf the Picard on his
And
own show.
he doesn't have to be
Yes.
Picard. He's not
He doesn't
Picard.
have
He's
to
his
be,
own
no.
thing.
But right, and they look up to him in that same kind of regal status because at this point he's a living legend.
Right.
You know, he's proven and the beauty of that is instead of us like when we come into Next Generation, we kind of have to warm up to Picard to see him this way. At this stage in the game, we know
Yeah.
that Worf is that.
Right.
We've seen it.
And
And so now to watch younger officers have to work around him the way that, Troy and Riker and Data and so forth had to work around Picard,
yeah,
it would be fantastic.
it
It
really
would be
would.
fantastic.
Well, and here's two. That'd be the exact plot line where the Klingon Empire becomes not just an ally, but part of the Federation. Like under Worf's leadership, the Klingon Empire is finally assimilated fully into the Federation, and it wouldn't be it's a sad thing. It would be sad in the sense, I'm sure if I were writing it, the Klingon Empire has lost the glory it once had. Galron, for example, is a perfect example of trying to recapture that glory backfired. So the Federation and the Klingon Empire being more assimilated is not a loss of Klingonness as much as it grows into. I mean, the Klingons are so interesting. So yes, make
Yeah.
them a part of the Federation. You know, the Federation are bold and brave people, but the Klingons are the pinnacle of duty and passion,
Well,
and they yeah,
but I like it because that whole premise would also give us something for the Klingons that I feel like has been missing. And it's like you said, like they're supposed to be these, we think of them this warrior culture with this honor system and everything else. But how many times have we seen them be corrupted
yes,
by, avarice or by, most meaningless slight from someone else, and now
right,
they're engaged in these horrible duels or whatever. Having someone like Worf and using Worf as a way to bring them into the fold and get all that extra corruption nonsense totally done with once and for all would really, like, I feel like would really elevate the Klingons. And
yeah,
then watching as like the ships and crews and technology and everything else merged together and became
yeah.
something that would be
We
so
finally
cool to,
allowed to have
yeah.
cloaked ships on the
Right,
Federation.
right.
Like
Federation
that.
cloak ships, or think of the concept designs for the ships themselves, bringing in
Klingon.
Klingon designs and aesthetics with the Federation. Be awesome. Some of the
Yeah.
best looking ships ever would
Yeah,
be
well,
out there.
the Defiant was always intended to be the small, fast, overpowered ship that it is. It's like the thing that was always missing was the Klingon element. That's why Worf was
Yes,
always kind of like the best guy as second in command on the ship, because it turns out
yes,
like it was just the right kind of style for the
yes.
Federation Klingon merger
If you
of
could ever say a ship had a mentality, the Defiant itself kind of embodies Worf's, that more tactical mentality that he had, and that ability to rise to an occasion and be, that dog in the fight.
yeah,
The Defiant is definitely that,
yeah.
and yeah, I
So
would love to see what they would do.
I'm gonna quickly point out that again in the autobiography, Cisco does get a chance to talk about a little bit the creation of the Defiant. So I look forward to talking more about that because yeah, the Defiant is an interesting case. The Defiant was a failure in the first iteration when Cisco was
Mhm.
first trying to make it. It turns into the success that it is during the show, but it was fun to read about Cisco trying to do something with it and it kind of failing. But that just means that it became something interesting in its own unique thing for the show. But yeah, we'll
Okay.
talk about that when we get there.
So we're gonna move on,
We got
and
to.
we need to
Yep.
get to Shattered Mirror.
Right.
This is an episode where we're dealing again with the mirror universe, and this is where uh, Mirror Jennifer, comes into the picture. She's there to recruit Ben because now she's found out that when he was visiting her universe, as we saw some episodes earlier, that he's not really her husband. And so, but she's now come to him to ask for help once again, to which, of course, he can't say no to any Jennifer Cisco, it seems. So he does. He agrees. They also rope Jake into this a bit, which is very hard for Ben to see his son with this woman who is his mom, but is not his mom. And you know, they even walk us up that path of thinking that maybe this Jennifer is gonna, cross over and stay with them, and ultimately that doesn't happen. She
Yeah.
dies. She sacrifices herself for Jake, um, and they are all together this time when she dies. So
Right.
it's it's that episode that I remember when we covered this one before. I said this was a necessary episode because we were needing Cisco to move on from his widow status. And one of the things that he said in the pilot was that he had never got the chance to say goodbye to Jennifer. He didn't know how to leave. That's what the project are talking about, how he exists in that moment. He didn't know how to leave that moment. I feel like this was their way of kind of giving both him and Jake closure from Jennifer. And
Right.
now it sets us up for Cisco to be able to move on. And as we know, Cassidy's right around the corner. Now, I did skip
Right.
over the hard time episode. This is the one where O'Brien has to, he has that mental prison thing in his head. That's just O'Brien must suffer on steroids, and I didn't feel like we needed to spend a whole lot of time on that.
Right. Yeah.
Anything you want to say about Shattered Mirror?
No. No. The most interesting episode that comes up now is For the Cause, where we realize that Cassidy might be working for the Marquis. Which
Yes, this is where Eddington is revealed to be our traitor.
Yeah, and he's been
Yes,
around since the beginning of season 3, if I remember correctly. He was introduced
yes.
when the Dominion or when the Defiant is brought.
When the Defiant is brought in with its cloaking device, we also have Eddington.
Right. I
Hmm.
remember reading that in the synopsis as we read that last time. Um, yeah, Eddington was interesting. He was always kind of this. How do you describe Eddington when he's on the show for the most part? He was before he's
Um,
revealed to be the Marquis guy.
he was
He's
boring.
Yeah, he really was. He was just the meh kind of guy.
Yeah,
And when he gets introduced in that first episode, there's the whole thing about him. They ask him a question about like being given a command, and he's basically like, "I'll do whatever I'm told."
yeah. He
Right?
gives the most. It's the weirdest conversation that I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they did it on purpose because of what we
Or
now
they,
know Eddington was going to become.
yeah.
But he gives this he's like, if you tell me to do this, then I'll do that. If you tell me to do this, he goes, I'm not here to make those kind of decisions at all. That's why I didn't enter into anything else.
To the
I just
command.
wanted to
Yeah.
do this. And I mean, it's just the weirdest kind of like basically he was just saying, I have no ambition whatsoever. I'm a human flesh bot.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever you tell me so long as someone above me is in charge and says that it's okay. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think about it one way or another. And even everybody sitting there, remember that was Bashir, Worf, and O'Brien, I think, are the ones having the conversation with him. And they're just looking at him like, I can't believe you said that. Like that's just strange.
Yeah.
And it resonates as strange. You should go back and watch that
It
particular
does.
episode.
And
It's awful.
what is so funny too, as you just pointed out, is like if that plot line that he's actually a secret infiltrator from the Marquis, and from the get go he was just a weird guy. He was playing his part a little too hard, even from that first episode that he was introduced. That would kind of make sense, but yeah, turns out he's a pretty devious member of the Marquis, as we basically find
Yeah.
out. Um, I'll just say it now. His plot line as this Maquis leader who's like got this, like he becomes like an arch villain of Cisco for a couple
Yes.
episodes.
Yes, he does. He
Like he's
fixates. He fixates on Cisco, and it's funny because the fixation it doesn't really seem to go both ways until later. Like
Yeah,
it's almost like Cisco, like even in this episode, Cisco's mad
right.
about what happens, sure, but he doesn't seem to really make like a big deal of it until later. And it's because they find out that Eddie has basically been playing in their backyard this whole time.
Yeah, right.
Like they've been focusing on, the Dominion and gathering intel about the Dominion and whatever else. Meanwhile, Eddington's over here just kind of rubbing it in that no one's
Notice
watching him and no
what he
one's checking him, and in
right,
particular that Cisco isn't. And so
right,
then when Cisco finally gets put on the case, he's kind of like, "Well, you got to pick on me." And it's like, what do you think was going to happen?
right. Well, it's true. I mean, well, I guess because those episodes later more when like
Yeah,
they
we
confront him, but yeah, his betrayal was a fun betrayal. It's always fun to have a plot twist where it turns out a character you thought you know is actually someone else. So his betrayal was interesting. The Cassidy element that didn't work quite as well in the sense of like all she's doing is just running supplies to what some place in what was like
the
there's some sort of
Badlands,
the Badlands. That's what it
the
was. Yeah.
Badlands. So
Which is
she's
nothing wrong.
running. Yeah.
But then she like goes to prison for 6 months. That's it, and like she comes back pretty quickly. From what I remember, being like 6 months ain't that bad. I mean, not that I'd
I
want to be
thought it
gone
was
for
longer.
yeah,
I, I
it was two
I've always
years,
thought it
right?
was. I always thought it was longer. I don't know why, but I just always assumed it was longer.
Yeah,
Maybe because in my head I wanted it to be like she was legit punished and that Cisco was really waiting around for her, or whatever. But I mean, 6 months is. I mean, I guess in their world where people really aren't, imprisoned for much, and also the prisons are very
true.
nice. As when we get to Voyager, you'll see. Um, I mean,
I
yeah.
guess I'm surprised more that she even was allowed to go back to being a freighter captain. Like, nope,
Well,
you lost your
so
privileges. You can't go
So
back.
and on that front, the reason why is, she was doing this for Bajor and for Bajoran citizens.
Hmm.
And so, she goes to jail, but they're like, "You were helping out Bajorans.
Yeah,
We're not
they
gonna
need you
we're not
back.
gonna hold you." Yeah. And then she comes back and she's working for the Bajorans. She's not working for the Federation. She's working for the Bajorans. She's a legit freighter captain for them again. So yeah, the
Okay,
the Bajorans are very much like it really they really look at the subjectiveness of the crime. Like, remember in um Duet, when the Bajoran kills Maritza on the promenade
uh
later
huh.
on, he only gets sentenced to 30 days.
Really, I didn't know he got sentenced because that episode ends
Yeah,
like right there. But
30 days.
wow, okay.
30 days. So yeah, they don't really hold it against you
So six
what
months
you
is
do.
actually quite a like
Yeah.
you better not do that again.
Yeah.
Next
And
time
that's
it'll be
probably
both wrists that we slap real hard. Yeah.
And that's probably because, and more had to do with the fact that she was a Federation citizen, and the
Uh-huh.
Federation was probably watching it and being like, "Look, you got to do something here."
Sure.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but that also explains why as soon as she's out, they're like, "Yeah, we kept your ship for you. It's shiny and ready to go."
Yeah, we polished it right before you got
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
So
All right. So let's see what's next.
to the death, to the death.
Ooh.
This is where the when Cisco and the senior staff arrive on the Defiant back to the station and see it's been attacked and ransacked, and a bunch of Jem'Hadar soldiers have come through, killed a bunch of people, stole a bunch of equipment, and jetted off through the wormhole. So Cisco gets back in the Defiant with Worf and some others, and they hightail it through the wormhole trying to track him down. They find a disabled Jem'Hadar ship with Wayoon and some other
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the introduction of
Jem'Hadar on
Mayun.
there. Yeah, and they're like, "Yeah, we're aware of who they are, and we need your help to stop them." This is where you find out about the Iconian Gateway that was uncovered in the Gamma Quadrant. Now, if you remember the Iconians from Next Generation, impressive technology that was left. The Iconians
Gone
have been
for
gone for
long.
thousands of years, but their technology still works. The gateways in particular will allow you to appear instantly pretty much anywhere. And so they don't want the Jem'Hadar to be able to repair this thing because, again, that could give them the ability to put thousands of troops wherever they want.
Right.
So Cisco and these Jem'Hadar soldiers and Wayoon partner up. They begin running drills to be ready for the attack when they land at this Iconian gateway. Trouble ensues on the ship. Worf and this other Jem'Hadar really kind of have beef with each other. Um, which comes to a head in the mess hall. And the Jem'Hadar first, whose name I believe was a Metaclan, a Metaclan,
Hmm.
he kills him. He kills the second, the guy who was fighting with Worf.
Yep.
Cisco just sends Worf to his room like a
Yeah.
scolding parent.
Yeah.
No supper, Worf. Goes off, and a Metaclan's like,
Punishments are very interesting in the Star Trek
yeah,
universe.
that's what a Metaclan says. He goes, you call that discipline? He goes, well, killing him's not going to do me any good. Now I would have been down a man, like you're down a man. He's like, yeah, but the rest of my guys know, don't dick around,
Yeah.
or I'll kill you.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, and then they lead the mission and everything else. The mission is successful. Um,
They
and then they end up killing Wei at the end.
Well, because they also the whole idea was right is that this is a renegade group of Jem'Hadar, but it turns out Wei Yun is such an abusive taskmaster that when they finally get their chance, they're like, boom, take him out of the picture. And do they basically join up with the renegades? Is that basically what it is?
No, so like they killed the main renegades who were guarding the Iconian Gateway, and then Wayun beams down afterwards and is like, "I'm so glad that's over. I want to inspect the wreckage." And Omediclan kills him, and then Omediclan's like, "That was for questioning our loyalty," because because the whole time Wayun had been saying kind of underhanded, divisive stuff about the Jem'Hadar, and it
It's
was
true.
pissing Omediclan off. So he kills him, and then he's like, "There are still renegades on this planet. We'll stay here and we're going to wipe all of them out. And now that the gateway has been destroyed, no one can go
Well
anywhere.
then,
So don't worry about it. We're going to stay
yeah.
here
So we'll
and
do
just
our
kill
duty
everyone until we're
without
all
Wei
dead."
Yun. Yeah, because we need the Tetracell White. We can't get any more. We'll do our job, kill all the renegades, and that'll be the end of it, right?
And then we'll die because
Yeah,
I've effectively made us renegades by killing Wei Yun too. So
right,
we'll destroy all the renegades and ourselves. We'll die here. No one will do whatever, and that's it.
right. You know what's so interesting about Wei Yun being introduced here is he doesn't come off as the tactical genius that he later becomes in his further iterations. He's
There's a
just
reason for that.
oh, okay,
So, as we know, the Vorta and the founders practice genetic manipulation and cloning. And the Vorta, that is Wayun, um, undergoes several tweaks to his genome as they clone him. And so, Wayun, this one is Wayun 5, I believe. And he's supposed to be the more genial, conversational Wayun. As time goes on and as the war gets worse and as certain things start to happen, the different iterations of Wayun, they like turn up his ruthlessness a bit.
ah,
So by the time we get to Wayun 7, he he's pretty bad. He's pretty
gotcha.
bad. And then
Is
we
is it
see
eight? Is the one that briefly like tries to defect to Odo? Is that number eight?
I think that's Wayne 6, and they said there was a default in his cloning, and so they flash clone to get to Wayne 7, which is a problem, and then they have Wayne 8, and then Wayne 8 is the last one that we ever see.
So, but the one we're seeing here in this episode, you said it was five, maybe
Wayne
not four,
5. I believe this is Wayne 5.
but he dies. So the one
Wayne 5 dies here.
right. So the one we see
Then
later on,
then we see Wayne 6, and he's the one who defects to Odo.
no, that can't be right because he says he was brought online because the previous one died.
That'd be
If I
this
remember
one.
correctly.
This one.
The one that defects to Odo is in the middle of like season 6, and we're still in the season 4.
We don't see Wayun again. Remember, we watch Wayun die here.
Right.
We don't see another Wayun.
The Wayun that we see fight the Dominion War is still a Wayun clone.
Yeah, that's like at you're talking about um when the Dominion takes over Deep Space Nine
Yeah.
and yeah, that's Wayun 7.
But the one who defects to Odo
It's
briefly in that
Wayun
one,
6.
but that can't be right because that happens in like after they take over the station.
No, it happens before that.
I think you're wrong, but we'll figure that out.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'll see if I can look it up while we're talking. But anyway, um, yeah, I feel like that's like season 6. But anyway, that's the end
So
of
so
this.
that's that one. And then yeah, we've got the quickening, which is not necessary to speak about. Body parts is kind of fun in the sense that it's the Quark episode where he's told that he's dying, he thinks that he's dying, he puts his body up for auction on the Great Ferengi Market.
Oh,
Brunt
right, that's a
buys
great little
yeah, Brunt buys
Ferengi.
every single piece of him, and he signs the contract
And don't
only to
they
find out
slice them? It's not like you get an
they
arm; it's
don't
you
just
slice.
slice it. They render you down,
Yeah,
and then they desiccate, they dry you up, and then they put bits of you into basically auger plates, and then they sell the plates. So
yeah,
then you've got all these containers, these discs of desiccated Ferengi.
right.
So like, yeah, you can't just like cut off a little bit of you and put it in a thing and say, "Here you go. Here's a piece of me." No,
Yeah,
it's got to be. It goes through a whole process.
yeah, it's pretty gruesome. Yeah, I remember it
Yeah,
being like,
and Brent's like, "Yeah, and that's what I paid for. I want all of it, all of you." And since
uh,
he doesn't go through with it, he ends up being blacklisted in Ferengi society, and he loses his Ferengi business license. He's cut off, basically, effectively exiled from Ferenginar. And at the end, we see everybody kind of comes in and helps him reopen the bar under new rules and new established management and so forth and so
right.
on. Great to see that everybody still supports him, even though Quark is awful. And then finally, in season 4, we come to Broken Link. This is the episode where Odo begins to suffer issues with his morphogenic matrix. The only people who can help him are the founders. So he goes back to the Great Link with the help of Bashir and Cisco. And uh, they put him in the Great Link where he is judged for his crimes of having harmed a changeling, as we saw earlier on in season 4, where he accidentally killed that other changeling. He's found guilty and is sentenced to life as a solid. They change him from changeling to solid, but they make him keep his um,
Face, his
yeah, as
his
as part of his punishment.
yeah. So he looks. He still doesn't look fully
Human or
humanoid.
humanoid or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
But
he's
he's got a
still
heart and the lungs and everything. He's basically human, but he doesn't look it.
right.
All of that to say, at the very end, of course, we find out that during his time in the Great Link being judged, he had heard whisperings of something, and this is where we find out that Martok is a changeling. No, that
You know,
Gowron,
Gowron is a change. I was
Gowron
gonna
is a
say
changeling.
they. It turns out they manipulate
What
what
they
Odo
wanted him to
thinks
hear,
correct.
yes,
Yeah,
that's it,
which is a great little twist. Like they knew that he would hear in on them, but they also knew how to manipulate what he would hear.
just
Um,
enough.
by the way, we were both kind of right. It turns out the Wayuns were 6 and 7, as you were mentioned, but it was season 7 that episode occurs where they go where he tries to defect to Odo, and so
Uh,
it's there have been other Wayuns by the time that happens, but the Wayun that we first meet in that episode we were just talking about, it's not clear, at least not from what I could find, which Wayun he is. He's probably like 2 or 3. I would assume maybe
but then
4.
the
I was initially
Wayun,
thinking 4, but
so
it's
the
not clear.
Wayun that does defect is Wayun 6.
6, correct. You
Okay.
were right about that. Yeah, it's just I like that
I
idea
know
where we
my
get
Wayuns.
yeah. Well, when we get to that episode, we'll talk more about that idea, the defection. But anyway, so it's not Gowron as season 5 opens with.
Apocalypse Rising, which is a
Yeah,
great episode. I love this one too.
yeah.
Cisco and
Everybody gets to
Bashir.
dress up as a
Yes.
Klingon.
And
Yeah,
you're a Klingon, and
and
you're a
you're a
Klingon, and
Klingon,
you're a Klingon.
and you're
This is
drinking blood wine, and you're drinking blood wine. Yeah.
so fun personal fact. This episode is the one that inspired me to be a Klingon for Halloween. I have not done it yet, but this episode is the one where I was like, it's
You gotta
possible.
do it.
I've got.
Well, I
I
thought
feel
you
like I
said
would
you'd
make a
be.
fantastic Klingon.
Oh, I totally agree, but I also thought you hated the idea of having to put on makeup that would like cover your
You
head
know,
or
I
anything.
I know that that would drive me insane. Like I already know because I didn't realize that's what it was, but I guess I do have um,
Some
claustrophobia
claustrophobia.
to a bit. But I was thinking back to when I played football and having to wear a helmet, and you know,
It's kind of
it was
similar.
always a struggle at first, like especially when you've been like out for the summer and you're off for the winter time and everything else, and you come back in spring and you put your helmet on those first few practices, it would always like drive me nuts because it was, there. But you do get used to it. You have to just, kind of have to grit your teeth and bear it and get through it. But you
Right.
can get used to it. And since it's not like my whole face, it's just, here
Hmm.
mainly,
Hmm.
I feel like I could do it. I feel like I could make it work,
Right.
you know. So my
Yeah.
problem is I'd have to find the right kind of head whatever and hope I'm not sweating too much that I can that it'll stay on because there'll be nothing worse than showing up and you're like,
You need to
you know,
get Jim
you're
Carrey's CIA torture guy who teaches him how to do torture. Get that guy to help you figure it
uh,
out.
so.
All
But I
right.
but I want to do it. I want to do it at least for uh, one holiday, one Halloween, and just go all out for it. Forehead, the teeth, the long hair,
Right.
obviously the outfit, and that's it. But yeah, Apocalypse Rising. This is the
Okay.
one where they sneak into the Order of the Batleth because they're trying to expose Gowron as a changeling. Um, they get found out. They get arrested. They're stopped by Martok. They explain their plan to Martok, who's kind of like, actually, I agree with you. I've been kind of feeling this way about Gowron for a while. That something's wrong with him, and so they agree to let um, Worf and Cisco and O'Brien go to challenge
Hmm.
Gowron,
Hmm.
but Martok stops Odo under the guise of "You're a changeling. We don't know where your loyalties lie."
Yeah.
But then, while the fight's going on, because Worf is the one that ultimately steps up to do this whole challenge thing,
Right.
um, uh, Gowron doesn't back down, and they're
Yes.
fighting with
Real balance.
Batleths. And
Yep.
Martok's like, "Why didn't you just shoot him? Why are they doing all this?" That's what tips Odo off. Odo's like, "Yeah, a changeling would do that, but
Right.
these are Klingons," and
You're
so
the actual changeling.
right. So
Yeah.
he's able to fight with Martok enough that he's able to draw attention to it. And he's like, Martok's the changeling. Everybody shoots at him. He does his weird morphogenic thing, which reveals, of course, he is the changeling. They blow him up. And this also ultimately leads to Gowron re signing the Khitomer Accords, which was the founding treaty between the Federation and Starfleet. So it reaffirms their ties.
Right.
So great
Yeah.
episode. Great
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah. Really great. Again, as I've said a million times by now, Klingon culture is the biggest success Star Trek had because it convinced me to like enjoy and like even appreciate a totally alien culture. Um, so
They're
brilliant.
great. They really are. Like in the development, especially in Deep Space Nine, to really deepen their complexity was a masterstroke here. It
Mhm.
gave us so much, and we get these great recurring characters, Martok, Gowron. It's great to see, and it's a nice way of like giving us strong characters without us having to rely so much on Starfleet for them. You
Mhm.
know, like we don't need a random captain or admiral coming in and being, a dick. Basically, we can do that with another species, and it works. Um, I don't really want to talk about the ship. I don't care.
Only
Um,
thing interesting about that one is we see a dead changeling.
and we see a new Vorta. This is a female Vorta. This is only the second time we've seen a female Vorta, so
No,
there's that.
the very in the episode where Quark and Cisco are captured by the Jem'Hadar for the first time, the woman that they were captured with was a woman, and it turns
I
out
know. I said. this is the second time we've seen a female
Oh,
warden.
I
She
think this is the first time. My
no,
apologies.
second.
I take it back. Sorry.
Jeez, always
Yeah,
trying to come
yeah,
for me. No,
yeah. Gotta one up you however I can.
yeah. And then we have Looking for Parmak in all
In
the
all
wrong
the wrong
places.
places.
Great,
Yeah,
fun episode.
yeah.
This is where Grilka returns. Uh, Odo, not Odo, but Quark is all the more smitten with her, and Worf sees her and wants to pursue her. At which point, of course, he is
He's
denied
offended because he's
because
a true Klingon, and Quark is in no way a Klingon. How could he ever expect to be in love with or earn the love of a Klingon woman? And they do this weird body like technology where like Quark is connected to Worf,
well,
and
so once again, Worf puts his blinders on because he's got something to prove that he is just as much a Klingon as anyone else, and that he knows the things to say and things to do, and he puts aside his disgust and contempt for Quark and helps him to woo Grilka. He
right,
knows all about where she lives, the traditions of her people and their region, and he instructs Quark to perfection.
right,
They use technology to imbibe uh, Quark with Worf's strength, basically, and his maneuverability. And Worf is able to fight for Quark in a lot of ways. The technology gets damaged at one point, and now it's back on Quark to be, well, Quark. And he's able to improvise enough that they're able
yeah,
to fix the technology, right, and get it working again, to which helps him to successfully woo Grilka. And meanwhile, as our B plot, we see that Jadzia, watching from the shadows, basically, um, starts to allude that she's interested in Worf. With she gets upset with how Worf is pursuing Grilka and the attention he's placing on Grilka.
right,
And she eventually gets to the point where she just blatantly accuses Worf of being blind to what's right in front of him.
right.
Uh, because she's
Mainly
like,
Worf.
at least Quark can recognize what's right in front of him. And yeah, it's kind of our way of taking Worf's blinders off there and being like, oh, Jadzia, she's interested in you.
Right.
They have their fight. They,
Which
tussle a bit, which ends in lots of
turns
bruises.
out that Jadzia is down just enough as a Klingon would be for the
The
for that
stuff.
works.
Yes, she was so impressed with Worf and what he was doing for Grilka. She's basically like, "How do I get in on some of that action?" And then she literally had to flip the man before he was paying her any attention. And
Yeah,
then everybody ends up in sick bay, with Bashir going, "I'm just gonna treat people. I'm not gonna ask questions anymore. Just you know."
right.
Which, you know what, I find his disgust rude and unprofessional. All right, like, you're a doctor. You're a doctor for countless species. All right, a Klingon and a Trill, or a Klingon and a Ferengi, shouldn't cause your brain to short circuit the way that it did. Just shut up. Hey, here's the thought, Doc. Don't ask anybody any questions. Just treat them and move along. Yeah.
Exactly. Still, it makes you
Things like
question.
this that make me not. Things like this just make me not like him sometimes. I was like,
Well, it's so funny too because
like,
Doctor
I get it,
Bashir is the last person on the list who ever has.
right? Dr. Bashir, the guy who will literally, it seems like he will go with just about anybody who flashes him a smile, and we're supposed to be uh, okay with his pearl clutching. Get out of here.
Right. Yeah. Totally agree with you there.
Um, nor the battle to the strong. It would be the next one. This is where not Cisco, but yeah, well, a Cisco, Jake, and Bashir are sent to the front lines.
Hmm.
Not intentionally. They were on their way back from somewhere. A
Yep.
distress call was sent out. They landed and attempted to help. It was a triage situation.
Right.
Their shuttle is destroyed, so they're stranded. They're waiting for the Defiant to show up to rescue them. But Jake gets a first-hand look at the battle and front lines, and what a true
Right.
hero is. And he has some very cowardly moments. He sees some very heroic moments from Bashir, which is great. A great way to redeem him from all the other things that he's said and done. Um, Ultimately, the Defiant does show up and rescues everybody, and then Jake later on writes about it, and we see Cisco reading it and being, very proud and impressed with his son for being able to own up to um, his feelings in that situation, his
Right.
inexperience, and his supposed cowardice. So
Right.
I think this is a great episode for Jake. A surprisingly great episode for Jake. One of few great episodes for Jake.
Yeah, that's true. Like as we said, I think it was last week. I was starting to say that Jake, unfortunately, kind of loses his place amongst everything else going on. But this is a good episode for him. Um, yeah, is this where Doctor Bashir gets captured? By the way, in terms of his being replaced by a
Oh,
changeling, is this episode
it's
that's supposed to have occurred?
so
Or
it's possible because when we find out later on that Bashir was captured, that's what he says, is that he was asleep, he was on his way to a conference,
right,
and then he woke up there. And in this episode, when it starts, Jake and Bashir are on their way back from a conference.
right,
So it's possible Bashir never made it to said conference.
yeah. It's either this episode or another one which we haven't come to yet.
It's
I know
got to
there.
be it's got to be this one because we're going to see the change in uniform. Like this is the last time, like these next few episodes here, this is the last time they wear these uniforms. The
It's season
Dominion
5
era.
where they switched them over.
Yeah. So it has to be
Yeah,
here.
I think this is the episode. I'm trying to. Well, maybe we'll find it as we keep going.
Yeah.
But I know it's during. Dr. Bashir went to a some sort of medical conference and didn't ever
Yeah.
return. So, but the next episode is kind of interesting because it introduces us to the paw race, the
Oh
assignment.
yes, the
Keiko
assignment.
comes back possessed by an unknown entity, later just revealed as the Paw Wraiths. She went to the fire caves and came back and tells O'Brien, basically, I need you to help me break into the temple, right? And
Mhm.
if you don't
I
do what I
want you to help me
tell,
destroy it.
yeah, and if you don't do what I tell you, I'm gonna kill your wife whose body I'm possessing. Um, this is also where Nog. No, this is not Nog. This is where
Rom.
Rom helps out. That's it. He uses Rom to uh, basically work some backdoor option in where
Mhm.
he technically does what he's being told, but it allows him to do what exactly? Like basically shock the entity out of Keiko.
So yeah, so well basically it is going what they do is Rom is the one who points out that they are reconfiguring the station into a giant weapon that will kill the aliens in the wormhole because it's a temporal weapon.
Right.
Um, what he ends up working out is that it requires certain positioning or whatever, and so when he flies the runabout out, he repositions the runabout so that it takes the full hit of the weapon, not the wormhole. And that's why she gets killed or
Right.
the entity gets killed.
Oh, right.
Because
She's in it when that
she's in
happens.
the yeah, because that was her whole point. She wanted to go out and watch them die.
Right.
And instead she got hit with it. So
Convenient, but all right.
mhm.
And
Then we
then
have trials and tribulations. This is or
I
tribulations,
was
I
gonna
should say.
say tribulations, yeah.
This is the 25th anniversary special. This is where our crew goes back in time and meets Kirk, Spock, and the old gang. And they're chasing down Arn Darvin, who turns out to be a Klingon in disguise, and who wants to kill Kirk. And they thwart him, but
Yeah.
not before we get to see everybody in nice retro 60s chic Trek uniforms.
Yeah.
So
23rd century uniforms.
23rd century, that is correct. Now, I always wondered, and this is more behind the scenes stuff. I just wondered, like, did they go and like basically comb through boxes basically to find these uniforms. I mean, I know that there was probably some of that, at least for like the print, the pattern or whatever. But the only reason why I ask is because when they get dressed and they put on, the red, the gold, the blue, it's so vibrant. The colors are so nice. It's like I don't remember them ever looking that way in the show.
back
Now,
in the original
granted,
show.
60s television was, crap. So it's possible they were, but they just didn't have the ability to show the
How
vibrancy
great
of
they were.
colors, right,
Yeah.
that we have now. And I'm also saying Jadzia looked amazing in the red with the red skirt and the
Mm,
boots and
it's
the
true.
beehive. I
Classic
thought,
lady look.
yeah,
Yep.
I thought that she looked great there.
Yeah.
So.
There's a slight downside to a modernized approach to women.
No, not a downside to a modern approach to women. He didn't. No, not like that. But it's more, I
The way
guess,
they dress, their styles. I mean, come on
they
now, man.
sacrificed, and I say for all of them, they sacrificed style for function.
True.
So
I mean,
that
was having quite the run of it as he traveled from planet to planet. So,
just saying. You know,
obviously, I'm kidding. Let he who is without sin. Yeah.
this is a troublesome episode. This is
Yeah.
a troublesome episode that is only slightly redeemed by the story that Worf tells towards the end.
Remind me what
Um,
that is.
so, as we know in this episode, the
Is
whole
this the one where
problem,
he tells about killing a kid?
yes,
That's it. Okay. Yes.
yes, Worf has always been very restrained. Jadzia has challenged him on this multiple times. This is kind of the reason they went to Rise in the first place. She wanted him to really loosen up. He becomes even more reclusive, if
Yep.
possible. He runs into these foundationalists or whatever they are, and they're all about restoring
Natural
the
order of the planet.
of the planet
Rise
because
up.
they believe that Earth and humans have lost their conservative value to a degree, and that we're too concerned with pleasure and hedonism, and so we need to be, smacked down a bit. Worf helps out. Trouble ensues. They finally get over it. The guy tries to stop Worf. Big mistake. Worf picks him up and hurls him across the room. But then, yes, he gets to the point where he tells the story and he talks about how growing up he had played all these different sports, or he tried to anyway, but there are very few sports that would allow Klingons to play with humans. One of them is soccer, basically, and he goes up to head the ball with this kid, and he talks about how the kid had greater position, but he was more determined to win.
Right.
And so when they went up both to head the ball, he missed the ball and he hit the kid,
Right.
and because of the fact that
Accidentally
he's a
killed him.
Klingon and their skulls are reinforced and all that kind of stuff, he ended up killing the kid. And ever since then, he became very aware of just how fragile humans are, and never wanted to hurt anybody accidentally.
Mhm.
He's always practiced this kind of restraint, control, not living with the kind of wild abandon we'd seen in other Klingons.
Right.
And Jadzia kind of helps him to see the error of his way of thinking. There was an accident, and all that kind of stuff. And he kind of sort of comes out of it. But again, another episode of a learning curve for Worf.
Well, again, and that's why I'm not a fan of this one. I appreciate that this story tells that story at the end. The idea that Worf has had to kind of keep track of his own power and his abilities so he doesn't hurt other people. That's very important. But the idea that from the get go, Jadzia is always kind of pushing Worf's buttons and I
Yeah.
want you to go do this, and I'm mad that you won't do it with me. And like, but Worf isn't allowed to be like, I don't want to do that thing. Um, I guess part of it for me is like, Worf had been on TNG, so he's the character I've known the longest. And so I automatically kind of sympathize with him, even though we were watching Deep Space Nine. Um, it just felt like Worf is never allowed to just be himself. He's never allowed to do things his own way. You always get told something
Yeah.
else, but you know, you have a problem, here's how you should do things. I mean, even Dave on TNG once had to chew Worf out. I'm captain. While I'm captain, if you have a problem, you got to say it to me in
Well,
private, not in
on that
public.
point though,
It's still a great episode.
Worf
That's
was
still a
being
great.
insubordinate. I've
He
watched
was
that one a couple
great.
of times. Worf was being insubordinate.
Well,
There's a difference there because the objection that Data had in that one was more about the fact that Worf was constantly uttering things under
he
his
was
breath.
making comments every time something happened. I'm
Right.
not saying
And
that's a great scene. I love that scene.
yeah.
My whole point though is that Worf can't catch a break. Everyone
Well,
from Dr. Crusher on down has something to say to Worf at some point.
yeah, that has always been my criticism of Next Generation is that we've got these people who are supposed to be all about understanding people's cultures or whatever else, and they constantly are dragging Worf for not being human. And
Yeah.
it's like the episode where Deanna gets pregnant, the offspring, and Worf's like, "We should kill it," and they're like, "Oh, how dare you? How barbaric!" And he's like, did y'all not hear what she said? Alien impregnated her and it's growing at a rapid rate inside of her. We don't know what the hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, kill
And
that thing.
That thing, it turned out to be benevolent. It flew off immediately, right?
It only flew off and was benevolent because it had the unintended side effect of they also just so happened at the time to be taking on board several thousand super deadly viruses, any number of which, if even one escaped, would completely destroy our life on the ship. And this alien baby was emitting just the right kind of energy radiation that one of them needed to begin growing exponentially.
Mm.
And so it's like, oh well, rather than kill you all, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna head out. It's
Yeah.
like, but if I don't know if you listened to Worf, you never would have gotten attached to the thing, and wouldn't have had deadly virus 9000 growing in the cargo bay.
Right.
So, who's right here, Deanna?
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking too, though, is of the episode, which is a great episode overall. I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad episode at all, but the TNG episode where his spine has to be replaced.
Yeah.
There's the whole bit with Dr. Crusher having ethics debates with the other doctor she works with and having to regrow his spine. It's all great. But there's the part too where Worf wants Riker to
kill him.
ritualistically kill him, and Riker's like, "I ain't gonna do it." It's an interesting debate. Don't get me wrong. It's an interesting debate because the whole idea is like, I believe that you should live. Like, I want
that is a very human way of thinking. We don't believe in suicide. We certainly don't believe in ritualistic suicide
or having someone else do it for
you.
Yeah.
And so, that's been a controversy for years, for sure. And so Riker gets to weasel out of it because he's like, oh, I looked up your custom and it says that I can't do it. Your son's got to do it. So look your son in the eye and have him bring you the knife, and then there you go. But
yeah, he was already there with the knife before he said it. Yeah.
I don't think he was ever going to go through with it, but I know the part you're talking about because when Beverly gets wind of all this, she goes to Picard and is bitching about how, excuse my language, but she is about how Worf wants to die, and she's like, he could have several years left, and she's like, and this woman is promising whatever, but he could die. There's no risk there, and he's like, well, and Picard's like, well, can you restore all of his movement? She's like, no, not all of it. There are some things I just can't do. And he's like, well, there's your problem, Bev. I don't know what else to tell you. If he's a Klingon, they view things a certain way. He thinks of himself as useless now. You coming in and yelling at him for a couple hours is not going to change how his entire people, cultural civilization has evolved. You're not going to change that for him at all. So either do the risky surgery or shut up and let him kill himself.
Yeah.
And Picard's like, I don't like it either, but I will respect that the man has a right to choose what he wants to do.
Yeah, in terms of him being a different alien and all that jazz. Yeah, it's, again, that's a great episode overall. But again, my whole point is that everybody at some point gets to chew Worf out for choosing this or that. And coming back here to this episode on Risa, it starts off, I feel like, on the bad foot because they land on the planet, and Jadzia is happy to be there, and Worf is being his curmudgeonly self, and that turns into this weird episode where Worf then, yeah, as you said, like he joins up with the whole freaking cult and like sabotages the planet because they can't do it. He's the only one who has the ability to actually do what they need to be done. So it like makes Worf look bad.
Yeah, it does.
Like if
It makes
Jadzia
him look. It makes him look petty and small. Like it's
it
one thing
does.
to object, but now you're ruining things for multiple people here.
Right.
You've
And just as like I didn't like the episode Rejoin because I feel like that did a disservice to Jadzia's character, I feel like this one did a disservice to his character in that sense. So we're early on in this Jadzia Worf relationship, and for me, I'm like, guys, can we work out
yeah,
our relationship a little bit before we start taking big old trips to Ryza now?
yeah, yeah. I
When
I,
he
I
wanted to go
agree.
camping, right? Didn't he want to go like camping or something?
Yeah, yeah. He wanted to go camping, and she was like, "Yeah, no, I want to relax. I want to be pampered. I want to, have frilly drinks and whatever else." And Worf's like, "You want to go to Ryza." So, yeah, like it's just not something that he's ever been interested in. And I mean, I think that it would have been an interesting episode if they had like, because I mean, Ryza apparently is a place where you're supposed to be able to do anything.
Yeah.
So maybe they compromise. Maybe they spend the day lounging on beaches and swimming and having friendly drinks the way that she wants. And then they spend another day hiking in the mountains and camping and whatever else. Let them both get what they want. That's how a vacation is supposed to work
Right.
when you're a couple. At least I thought so anyway, but whatever.
We will get an episode of the two of them hiking through a forest in season 6, if I remember correctly, right
Yeah,
after they
with
get married.
tragic consequences.
Yeah. But
Um,
that's not this episode.
no. Now we come to things past, which I really like this episode. I think this is one of those very poignant episodes. They strike a chord with me here in this one. This is the one where, Odo
He's feeling guilt for his past.
yeah, well, so the episode starts, if I remember correctly, they went to a conference on Bajor, and Garrick had gone with them, and he said everybody was polite enough to Garrick, but they were very, clear they didn't want him there. And so
Right.
Garrick was like, I don't understand, what their problem is. Whereas Odo, they were treating us like almost like a revered figure,
Right.
and this greatly upset Odo. And so he starts thinking about his past, and then there's an accident which causes Odo, Cisco,
Mm-hmm.
and Garrick
And Dax.
and Dax to be locked in this, Great Link simulacrum or whatever.
Right.
And they're reliving these events from Odo's past, and they don't know it's Odo's past. They just think they've been flung into the past.
Right.
And they're trying to piece it together, but Odo knows what's going on, and he's basically made to relive these moments, trying to exonerate themselves. And it's these
Right.
three individuals that he had executed, and we find it later on that that was the situation. Three innocent men were executed at his order, and he's never forgiven himself, nor has he told anyone. But now he's kind of being forced to. And also at the end of this, we see where Kira has read the report.
And she has
And
like she like loses some faith in him at the end.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, because she even says you were one of the good ones. You were one of the few that we all
Trust.
thought of as untouchable. And then she's like, but I guess it just goes to show you that no one walked out of the occupation clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great. I think it was a great moment for Oda because that is so, especially that ending with him and Kira, because that was part of their issue earlier. It was like, remember the episode? What was it called? Indiscretion, I think.
I
And
forget, but keep going. Yeah.
and Oda was doing the investigation there, and Kira was a suspect way back when for the
Oh yeah,
murder of
the
Vactric.
flashback. Yeah.
And he was all on Kira's case, like, why didn't you ever come forward and tell me
Yeah.
about this? She's like, well, I didn't want it to change how you thought of me. And
Yeah.
now here we see
I'm
it
glad you mentioned that.
on
This
the
is the
other
other
side.
side of the coin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of them. You know what? Maybe that does a lot to explain why the two of them weren't ready to be a couple until later on, because Kira was treating Odo as this,
This paragon figure, and she
yeah,
had She had already done something terrible. She could not be with someone as
Yeah,
seemingly
she was
perfect.
guilty of like
Right.
she murder the guy that she murdered someone. She
She
assassinated
did.
someone,
She
right?
murdered. Yeah, she murdered Vatrick. She's the one who did it.
Right. So, but we know why she did it. But it was a Bajoran that she assassinated. Is that correct? That's
Yeah,
the
she was a
idea. She was a
Bajoran. He was a Bajoran
collaborator.
collaborator, and
Gotcha.
she assassinated him.
And
Yes.
then here's Odo. This is early on in his career, though, if I remember correctly. He
This was during the 7 years before the end of the occupation, and he was the I don't know what the
Well,
term was for him
he
then.
was I think part of the plot of it is that the whole time the former chief of police, where that we were like the former constable before Odo was in that high position, there was a Cardassian guy, and the
Mhm.
Cardassian guy is the one that is the guilty party of
No,
pinning this on no in Odo's in this
he rewrites it
yes,
for it to be that guy, and they were like,
and
because
then the end
they
of the
identified
episode
because
reveals
they
it actually
identified
was
that
Odo.
guy, and they were
Yes,
like, yeah, because they were like, this guy shouldn't be here.
yes,
You should
exactly.
be here at this
Right,
time, and
right.
that's where again the story starts to unfold because it's like
Right.
Odo was
Yeah.
trying to make it seem like it was someone else, but it was really him, and it
Right.
was during his early days in that position,
Right.
and yeah, Kira was like, yeah,
I
you never told me.
I like the idea that Odo was so guilt ridden by having failed here that from then on he had a higher standard for himself. Like he never allowed it to happen again,
That's
but
true.
it did still happen, and so he still feels guilty for
Yeah.
it. It's a great episode. You're right. Then next is I
Also, really
guess
quick aside, this is also a key episode because it shows us that because as we know, by this time Odo has been turned into a solid. But this also shows us that he's not fully solid. It's very
oh
important.
interesting. Okay.
He's not fully solid.
Mm,
It's very important.
oh okay.
So,
Uh, Rapture is where Cisco has visions of an ancient Bajoran city, and so his identity as the emissary is more proven, especially to Kai Wynn.
mhm.
Kai Wynn
uh,
is
and
finally.
this is also where Cassidy Yates comes back.
Oh, is that the yeah? Okay, this is where
Yes,
Cassie Yates returns. Okay.
this is where Cassidy returns because he is having all of these visions. He goes and finds the lost city of Bahala, but Cassidy comes with him to find Bahala.
Yeah, and it's 20,000 years old. Apparently, been missing for all this time.
And
Crazy.
Cisco continues to have various visions, and this is also the time that the Bajorans are about to sign into the Federation, and Cisco tells them not to, that they must stand alone. This gets him into some hot water with the Federation, but
Mm,
again, because of his status with the Bajoran people, they're kind of like, well, we can't punish him
right.
because if we do, the Bajorans will never join
Right.
the Federation. So
Right.
he gets to keep his position, even though he went against the wishes of the Federation.
Right.
So I love these kind of, is this mythology? Is this religion? Is this, prophet? I love those episodes. You know, I like them because it's not something that you see very often on any show to play with any kind of religious dogma, and
Uh huh.
especially not to the point of like creating your own. And how do you get it right? Like, what do you need to do to get it right? And it's because religion is such a touchy thing for people. And when you got something that is obviously, and whether they intend to or not, but it does draw on parallels from a multitude of religions, it's I gotta imagine those guys are walking a tightrope when they're putting this together to be like, we can't say too much, we can't lean too much one way or another, because we may end up offending someone of whatever the
Right.
religion is.
Yeah.
And yet to still come up with something that helps to advance the overall narrative of your show is, I think it's just awesome. I don't think I could ever do it. I've tried writing different things using religion before. I end up throwing them all away because I just don't like the way that it comes out.
Yeah. Well, we have been doing this for an hour and a half.
I
It
was gonna
is
say
11
let's
o'clock here
actually
our
wrap
time
this up
now.
here. We're
We're
gonna have to.
halfway through season 5. We are going slower and slower each time because we're just doing more time with every episode, I guess, as we recap
Well, I
them, which
mean
is
these.
fine by me.
Yeah, I mean that as I
Um,
told you before, this I knew this was going to happen because these episodes
yeah,
get more and more complex as we get
that's
deeper
true.
into them,
It's actually
and
true if you think
yeah,
about
yeah. I mean and as we get, especially when we hit season 7, it's going to be amazing. But
it.
yeah, we'll try our best to speed things up. New Trek updates. Apparently, the powers that be have decided to go ahead and drop the new show, Starfleet Academy, January 16th. It actually has an official date. January 16th, the first episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy will air. I'm sure it'll be on Paramount Plus and everything else. So you can um, watch it there. Strange New Worlds is also scheduled to come back next year, so be on the lookout for that. I'm not. They did. There's not a date for that. I think it was April was the last time I checked, but it wasn't like a hardcore date set there. Most likely, what's going to happen is, especially with the new show coming out in January, probably you'll get the first season done of that one, and then maybe like a month or two after that, they'll do the next season of Strange New Worlds. That way, you get a little break there. Um, but that's it. I don't have any other new Trek updates for you or anything like that. Feel free to leave us a comment if you want to talk about a particular episode that's coming up from where we are. We're not going to go back, but from where we are, if there's something that you want us to go into or whatever about an episode, please feel free to leave a comment. We'll sort that out at that time. But
Right.
as always, guys, until next week, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.